Hi guys, I'm back and today I'll be going over the Oquan. The Oquan is a homebrew race which I have created and I'm using in my world, which I'll be running and am running, and these are some basic notes about them. So, what do they look like? Well, they are humanoid, they have 2 arms, 2 legs, but they often have slight ocean influences. Like, many of them have slightly webbed fingers to completely webbed fingers, some even have fins, and the most extreme ones have very visible changes based on a specific ocean species. For example, they might have a large fin on their back, a sail sort of thing, based on the saltfish or sailfish. Or even you might get some very large Oquan who have the traits of a whale. This is all influenced by how they are created, or at least reproduce. They are very similar to viruses. They don't require each other to multiply, but they require a host species. This host species is the boam. The boam is a large sphere of gel, and inside the sphere of gel, it is hollow, is full of algae, a very specific type of algae. This sphere of gel is held off of the sea floor by a long rope-like stem, and it kind of bobs upwards. So the Oquan place their palms against this boam, and their DNA, or GAMT, is transferred over into the boam. This GAMT, the genetic and memory-related information, is then infused into the algae inside the boam. The algae then solidifies and forms the skeletal structure, and then the boam stem grows rapidly and is then replaced inside the sphere, making the musculature and special organs. Any diseases or mutations that the boam has will be transferred to the Oquan. The Oquan also transfer memories through their DNA, much like turtles do, with locations. Just it's a much more accurate, constant thing. The thing about the Oquan is multiple Oquan can touch the same boam simultaneously and therefore have a mixture of traits, effectively like with humans where you get genes from both parents. But this is not limited to 2 parents, it can either be 0 to effectively any number in the high hundreds. And we'll get back to this in a short while. So, they look like slightly fishy humanoids, pun intended. What do they do and where did they come from? Well, they travel round the ocean in small tribes called tides. Because this planet has no moon, there are no tides, so the concept of tides is related directly to ocean people, the Oquan, traveling around. They are nomads and often don't build houses, and if they do, it will be in the form of a ship, and it's entirely just to carry cargo. These people are often led by a single individual. This individual has the genetic information of every single person in the tribe, and therefore can make good, accurate representation of everyone. He is everyone, or she is, or they are. The issue with this is they often have very conflicting mental states, and therefore are very mentally unhealthy, and also any genetic mutations and or illnesses in the entire population will all be focused in on this one person. It's not actually that good to be one of these. It's very difficult. The Oquan have good relations with all the other humanoid races, and in fact are considered great traders because they never really use anything for themselves and are traveling around the oceans constantly, so it's pretty easy to persuade them to just carry something along with them. Why do they not use materials, I hear you asking? This is because they're not originally from the planet of Surat. They are originally from the planet of Oquan, original names here. Each planet is a large donut shape, and these donuts used to be interlocked like a chain. But millions, possibly, of years ago, the planet where the dwarves came from was destroyed, and the Oquans, fearing the same fate, split off safely from the rest of Surat, and therefore Surat is free floating in the endless void of space. So the Oquan had a couple people remaining who didn't leave with their planet. These then populated the ocean and brought all of the species from Oquan into the oceans. The oceans used to be completely empty. There was no life in them at all. So the Oquan are now here, and from the ancient times they had a very strong tradition of memories. Because their memories are passed down, it's important that you continue with what your ancestors were doing, because they still live on within you. So you don't want to effectively dishonor them, because you are a physical direct link to them. This tradition of memories was also part in connection with their way of using materials. They often wouldn't waste anything. Because the oceans were such a harsh place to live in back then, they had to use every single scrap of everything they could to do anything. And therefore, they still to this day prefer not to waste rather than to create en masse and use what is necessary. They are very minimalist people. They do not wear clothes, they do not build houses, and they are very communal. In fact, they often sing and play instruments together in a form of teaching each other about the world, especially for new professions and new family lines. Family lines are also very important because one family might be, for example, a dolphin catcher who catches dolphins and trains them. And thousands of years ago, they would have still had that same profession. And every generation, they maintain that same profession, moving it forwards. So the Oquan are incredibly specialized, but also incredibly good at what they specialize in. This is why they are also very good scientists. They have a natural affinity with the very small, the minutiae, and their entire religious or belief system is based on various elements and how elements interact, and therefore they are very interested in alchemy. So, now let us go to the subspecies. There are many different subspecies of Oquan, and for this one, I think I'll just go over one. I might do a couple more later, but for now, we'll just go over the lightning Oquan. So, a small passage about the lightning Oquan. Before the Oquan arrived, the seas were empty and bland. And the skies, too, were filled with only heavy moisture and slow-moving clouds. Rain was a thing of myth. But then, one tribe of Oquan dabbled deeply into the element of lightning. They infused it into their cargo ships and started sailing. They used the clouds as cover shields and hid in the dark. Their sister tribe, the Crash Oquan, quickly became infuriated by their deviousness, their evil intentions, and soon developed their own ships. And this technological battle escalated until the Lightning Oquan formed the first storm vessel. It could sail on the moisture of the sky, and so it became the first storm cloud, with the hull built out of pure lightning. The Thunder Oquan, or the Crash Oquan as they called themselves, quickly developed the same technology and chased them. And this is why lightning is always seen first, and thunder comes soon after. So, this is the origin story for the lightning and thunder, and is entirely related to the Oquan. They travel around through the skies, and like with the tides in the ocean, these Oquan also effectively control the climate. It only rains when they are directly overhead and in a battle. So many Oquan have very strong beliefs about rain and lightning and so on, because it is inherently part of their people. These lightning Oquan look very similar to all other Oquan, but have fewer fish-like traits. They are often much taller and much thinner, yet still very strong. Their hair is either very large and bushy, cloud-like almost, ranging from white to grey to pale blue, or very straight and almost sharp, and this is almost always white or pale blue. The main difference is that their blood is full of bioluminescence. Their blood glows a very bright whitish blue color. These Oquan are in so many fights that the average lifespan of one of these Oquan is actually 25 years, rather than the normal Oquans of 60 years. Genetically, they're pretty much identical to Oquan, and they carry the Boam in these large host vessel ships, which they often hide in certain areas. They will hide them in large caves and so on, where the storm will constantly be brewing. These are called lightning caves. And there's quite a couple of them, but they are very hidden so that the Thunder Oquan can never find them. The social changes to these Oquan, they are less community orientated, but with the community they are connected to, they are much more connected. It's a very tight, small groups, generally on a ship-to-ship basis. They also hate anything loud. They are, well, at war with thunder, which is the essence of being loud and sound, so therefore they like to be fast and quiet. These are the traits they are looking for in other Oquan, in other people, and this is what they believe to be good. Another side note, naming traditions. A normal Oquan has a 6-letter name. It is traditional to have a 6-letter name. Their alphabet is vast, so there's effectively an endless combination of 6 letters that you could have, but their name is always split in 2 with a hyphen in the center. So the first part is their surname, and the second part is their personal name. The surname, the first one, always has 1 vowel, and the second name always has 2 vowels. So it might be something like Celia, and then it would just be pronounced Celia. And the lightning Oquan often use very quiet sounds in their names, like S's, and avoiding things like K's and all plosives like P, B, D, and T. So it's a very quiet, but the language can still be heard over large distances if they want to, although whenever they do, it just sounds like whispering. It never sounds loud. So, these lightning Oquan, they're even in some smaller towns and so on, less educated people might even worship them as like rain gods and so on, but they are kind of into that. They do believe themselves to be better than most, and the only people who are in the sky, and therefore they believe themselves and the Crash Oquan to be the pinnacle of science, technology, and just effectively the greatest life forms. And they're in a war which has slowly changed over the last couple thousand years. There used to be that this is a crime against physics and the universe, to a fight for we are the greatest people. Yet the lightning people are almost always respected more than the Crash Oquan, which gives them a superiority complex. And yeah, I think that's most of the information I have on these two things, the Oquan and the Lightning Oquan. I gave some information about the Crash Oquan, but if you want it in more detail, just send me a comment. And there's some interesting things you can do in the story-wise. If you're playing as a Lightning Oquan, it's very common for a coming of age or a birth test. So in the birth test, the birthright, the newborn, although they have the memories and abilities of their parents, they are sent way up into a cloud where they are then struck by lightning. If they die, they are rejects and failures. If they survive, they are then considered true Lightning Oquan. This is a very difficult test, and many Oquan die in this process. And when they do survive, they are often covered in large burns. These burns are then painted over in effectively tattoos of light fluorescent colors like white, blue, and occasionally green, but it's normally always white. So, and coming of age. This is generally at the age of 2 years. The Oquan becomes entirely fully jeweled, and they fully matured and grown, and they are sent out to a specific designated area where there is a truce, generally on the top of a mountain, where the Crash Oquan will send a small ship, and the Lightning Oquan will send the small ship, and all of the these two tribe people, all of the people coming of age, will fight on this flat mountain top with blunt weapons until both teams are tired out of exhaustion. And if they fight until they are exhausted, they are considered to be real warriors, and only the warriors then can work on the lightning ships in the sky. Other ones are just sent back into the ocean. So the funerals are also quite interesting. They are slightly inspired by Viking funerals, but the slight difference there is that the ship, which is normally made out of lightning, is sent out into the clouds, into the sky without cloud cover, which means the Crash can very easily find them. The Crash Oquan will come there and destroy the ship entirely. This makes it very symbolic that they fought until they died, and even after death they were still powerful in the way that they could distract the enemy from a larger battle. So this tactic is pretty much employed everywhere, and it is the greatest honor to have your ship be destroyed along with you. Only the leaders of each individual ship will ever have this. So, there's a whole ton of things that you can do with the Oquan. This is almost a 20-minute video. Thank you for using the Oquan, and if you do, write me a comment. That'd be great. See ya.